Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 9th, 2021 Planning Board meeting. First on the agenda is a public hearing for Binns Family Trust, 5 Vesey Lane.
So, as you know, Mike's not here, Mike Carnaz is not here. He had no comments. All his comments were addressed. All engineering comments have been addressed. The applicant provided an engineering performance bond and an engineering fee.
Pat?
And, Mr. Chairman, all the site planning issues were addressed, and you have 2 resolutions before you this evening, seeker negative declaration and a site plan approval resolution.
Thank you. Anybody from the audience like to be heard on Binns Family Trust, 5 Vesey Lane?
Mr. Chairman, being there's no public comment, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 21-16, December 9th, 2021, tax map number 75.20-2-2, Binns Storage Building, 5 Vesey Lane South, seeker determination of significance, negative declaration.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 21-17, December 9th, 2021, tax map number 75.20-2-2, Binns Storage Building, 5 Vesey Lane South, final site plan approval.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Joe, the only thing I'd ask the owners here is there's a lot of activity down in that area. I went by it again this week. I'm assuming and I'm hoping that this building helps clean up things down there a little bit.
Oh, yes.
You know, I think actually this could actually enhance the area.
Yes.
And I hope that's what the plan is.
Everything will be inside, as you
Yeah.
said. And so I think the outside activity will be reduced
Great.
considerably.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I don't know if you're having another meeting, but if not, I'll see you in
Thank you,
January.
Thank you, Joe. You too. You also.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Hamlet at Carmel, Stoneley Avenue, amended site plan. Rich, you want to read Mike's comments, please?
So, yeah, per Mike, the applicant proposes to develop 150 multi-family development with necessary parking and recreation spaces on a 35.28 acre parcel. The project is for all ages, not multi-family dwelling for the elderly. There will be a market rate and affordable units on the project. The ZBA interpreted the multi-family dwellings are permitted in the R residential zoning district in May of 21, and that 5 units per acre are permitted. The question Mike has, will this project be fully built before any COs are issued? If this will not be the case, a CO issuance schedule should be submitted and approved as part of the plat before final approval. Town code requires the entire project be constructed before any COs are issued. However, if the project is approved with the CO schedule showing how each phase complies, phase in quotes, complies with the zoning code, he can issue a CO before the project is fully complete. The engineering department needs to confirm this project conforms with section 15628A, which reads, adequate water supply shall be made available the entire year for fire protection services.
Thank you, Rich. Your comments, please?
So my comments, while I have a bunch of pages on there, the applicant has been addressing them. We do need to talk about water and sewer going forward. They've noted comments about the permits that are needed, about the references that are needed, the wetland delineation. They've re-performed it, and they're meeting with the New York City DEP. They need to provide documentation on that. Stormwater pollution prevention plan has been updated. It's been they will submit that to the New York City DEP as it was originally approved by them. Traffic study was provided. They has indicated they would submit the information to the Putnam County Department of Highway and Facilities. We should probably hire a traffic consultant maybe to look at that, just to confirm it. Stormwater maintenance agreement, they provided a copy of it. I need to provide a copy of that to Joe to review, or Planning Council for review. Ultimately, a performance bond associated engineering fee must be established. It is needed minimally for stormwater management practice, erosion sediment control, drainage features, landscaping that are installed on the site. I reference 15661 of the town code for additional info. There are some detailed comments. The applicant has noted that they will provide in a future submittal. So this is moving along at a good pace. The water and sewer is an issue, or not an issue, something we still need to discuss. The applicant's aware of that, and we go from there.
Thanks, Rich. Pat?
At last meeting, we talked about the update of the environmental review of the project, and the applicant, as I indicated to you last time, did a very good job. There were a couple of outstanding items that required some further clarification, so the applicant has provided that. First and foremost, there was a question about who was going to operate the affordable component of the project, and in fact, the applicant will maintain ownership of the project, and they will be responsible for administering the affordable housing component of the project, which is, by the way, preferable to have a consistency from today when he hears your concerns and issues and actually administers the program for the rest of the program's life. There were two questions that were outstanding in the EAF that the applicant supplemented for you. The first, Rich alluded to, was the traffic analysis. So there was an additional intersection that required analysis. They went out at Drewville and Stoneleigh and did counts prior to the last meeting. They hadn't had an opportunity to evaluate that information. They have subsequently done that. And as you might have anticipated, the volume at that intersection is substantially lower than what it was in 2006 when it was originally evaluated, something like 10% lower than what it was. So in terms of the impact threshold, we evaluated, and again, remember, we're looking at the delta between what we looked at back then and what we're looking at today. So the delta has decreased in this instance, so the impact is reduced from what we thought was acceptable years ago, which is a reassuring factor. The other issue that we needed to look at with respect to this was fiscal impacts. So the applicant updated that information as well, and as you saw from the information, there's a net financial or fiscal benefit when you take into consideration all the community service costs. This project results in a surplus to the community at the end of the day. So positive fiscal impact. And
Pat,
that's,
is there any thought on the traffic study, with it still a decrease in traffic now due to COVID?
so, you know, it's hard for them to evaluate that. They've done their best and they've used the techniques we are all using today to evaluate traffic impacts in a COVID world. So they've used the methodologies that we've all accepted sort of universally. So there's no reason to dispute the numbers, and logically, the conclusion is it makes sense.
The only, if I could just jump in, two things. I mean, first, I live less than a mile, I guess, from the intersection that you're talking about.
Yep.
And, you know, I look at it and I say, well, the original study was 2006. And since then, we know that the hospital has grown exponentially. I mean, the emergency room alone was,
Which we approved, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that was 2017, and then before that, there were other additions to the hospital. And I'm not saying that the study's wrong, believe me. I'm just saying it seems somewhat counterintuitive. And I know from my own experience going through that intersection that in the time I've been up here 27 years, I think, and I know that that intersection is more busy now than it was years ago. So the only thing I would throw in is, and again, I'm not disputing I'm not saying you're wrong, trust me. I'm just saying maybe to Rich's point that we should have our own engineer just at least review the numbers and look at it.
Yep.
And give an opinion.
Yeah, I think Jeff can give some further color to that, but point
My
well
only
taken.
concern is this. I mean, we're being good neighbors with the hospital. We're going to be sharing ingress and egress, you know, that they're using for the emergency room and everything. And I think for due diligence, I'm just thinking that maybe we need to have someone look at it from our perspective, just to confirm that everything there is correct. Just an opinion.
Yeah.
Jeff, before you go, just to follow up, I apologize, Jeff. And I'm sure you're aware of it, but just to know, and the board should be aware, the intersection of Drewville and Stoneleigh is slated to become a traffic circle. I don't know if everybody knows that. Jeff, you knew that?
Yes.
A rotary,
No,
yeah.
I didn't
A rotary, yeah. So So that's something, I don't know if that was included in the study, or if that impacts the study at all, or if the county needs to know
We
that.
couldn't all hear you. You mentioned that intersection is going to become a traffic circle?
A rotary, yes. Yeah, so.
I think I remember hearing that at a previous meeting, didn't we?
I
Somebody
don't-
may
I
have
don't
mentioned
remember
to it. I'm not
discussing
sure
it.
if it was exactly, they said that was the area, but there's a traffic circle in that area coming. So I
Right, and
think
it might be,
maybe I-
it might be 2 years off or
Yeah.
whatever, but it's in process with the
Yeah.
county. And just so the board is aware of that, the applicant's aware of it. I don't think it impacts the traffic study as much, because you're really looking at counts, not the way the road looks, but just so everybody's aware of that, so that might be that
Is it-
traffic calming.
Is it Drewville and Stoneley or Stoneley and 22?
No, Drewville.
Drewville and Stone.
Drewville and
That corner
Stoneley.
right there.
Right where the New York City DEP just put their stormwater basin, we have a pump station there. There's another development that was approved a couple of years ago to the right, and there's some vacant land there. That area is all going to be touched.
And just to complicate things in terms of whether this is good or bad, the intersection levels of service are based on delays. When you're at a traffic control device, there will no longer be a traffic control device there. So the way, we're not comparing apples and oranges anymore when they install the rotary.
Jeff, hi, Jeff.
Good evening, Jeff Cantelmo from Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. I'm here this evening with Ken Carney and Christian Donahue from Carney Realty Development. I'm just going to hit a couple high points based on the comments that have been made. With respect to Mike's comments, we're aware of the CO sectioning that he needs us to do, and we'll get that clarification on the map. But as far as the adequacy of the water supply, that is a zoning requirement. It's one we responded to in the past. We've presented a water and sewer report to the board and to the town engineer. We are an out-of-district user for both Sewer District 2 and Water District 2. There is adequate water for that purpose. We've also met with the fire department based on the request of the board. They were very happy to hear that we're sprinkling all of our buildings, despite your code requirements, we're above and beyond that. So I believe the adequacy of the water supply has been addressed.
Jeff, just staying on water, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I also was in a meeting this week with the fire department. I questioned them in preparation for tonight, and they said, you guys worked tremendously. You just moved around some hydrants. You said that went very well. Is there going to be a retention pond on site or anything to help with the fires or the sprinkler? And you said the site is going to be sprinkler system?
Is this on? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, there are 4 large stormwater basins. Now, those basins are really not ideal for firefighting purposes. They're not of large volumes. Some of them are shallower, so that's really not part of the plan in terms of fire protection. But we will have a series of stormwater basins on site.
Okay.
All right, so we've talked about maybe having some kind of installation of a tank or extra storage in that area for fire suppression. At least we've talked about that in the past, so that's why we're still reviewing the water and sewer reports on that. That's something that had been mentioned to the applicant, and they were looking into it.
Yeah, as far as we are, just to be clear, we are not looking into it. I don't mean to
was
be,
gonna ask
yeah,
that
we are not looking into it. We did meet with Rich. We did review the water and sewer reports that have been produced. We also have an out-of-district agreement for both water and sewer, and our out-of-district agreement is for much more flow than we actually need. And Ken has made the commitment back to both Rich and the board that once things are settled on his programming and his approval conditionally is in place, he will then reduce that commitment to be congruent with what we are looking for with this project, which is substantially less than what the current agreement is. And that takes some pressure off of the district in terms of obligations going in the future. If Rich would like us to look into putting a tank on site, putting a tank on site is not so easy. The Carmel Sewer District 2 floats on a system where all the tanks are at the same elevation, and our tank can't be on that same elevation because our land is not at that elevation. So putting a tank in place for firefighting purposes is a slight challenge, but again, if we're asked to look at that, we will look at it. I did not get that message loud and clear, so I apologize for that. But
And I apologize if I didn't get that loud and clear. You certainly should consider it. We talked about maybe the feasibility of it, and yet to look into it. Whether or not it's feasible is something that you guys have to come back and let us know, right?
Okay, sure.
But I think it's important to address maybe the chairman's concerns. He was asking if the retention basin can help for fire suppression. Maybe if you have an extra fire suppression tank there, not to supply drinking water, but it's there for water, for fire. Maybe it's something to consider. Again, is it realistic? Is it not realistic? Can it be done? Is there a location for it? That's all the stuff. If you can look into it, that would be great.
And the last part of that is, does the fire department find that there's some benefit to them with it, right? So, yeah, we don't mind looking into that. But as far as the water and sewer connections that we're proposing, we have, as part of our previous version of this plan, obtained all approvals for water and sewer connections. We've modified those connections to accommodate the new arrangement. So as far as we're concerned, those items, maybe less a few details, are in solid shape and consistent with what's been done in the past. As far as traffic goes, our firm didn't prepare the traffic and environmental review. Tim Miller Associates did. As Pat accurately summarized it, there is a slight decrease in traffic on the local network in our immediate area. That's part one. Part two is that we really don't generate a lot of traffic. It's pointed out in the traffic study that we're less than the threshold that the seeker workbook says is significant, which is 100 vehicle trips per hour. If I remember correctly, we're hovering in the 50s. The previous 120-unit senior housing projects was hovering in the high 30s. So we're not talking about any significant change in traffic. I also was going to point out the fact that the county is quite a bit along with the rotary design for Drewville and Sonley Avenue, which is the one intersection, I think, in our neighborhood of our project that would be of a concern. And obviously, that rotary, as Pat's indicated, is going to take some of the pressure off of that intersection. So we yield to the board on traffic, although we don't believe it's a significant impact. It's certainly something that if the board needs to have your side look at it closer, certainly do so and let us know thoughts. As far as physical impacts, yes, as Pat pointed out and Ken spoke to last time, the physical impacts have been summarized and shown a net benefit. I don't know if you want to add something.
You hate giving this to me. I know this kills you. Good evening. In regards to the water pressure as it relates to fire suppression, we've dealt with this issue in the past. What we ask is that as the building, the architectural plans are submitted, there are tests that are run, analysis, calculations that are done by our fire sprinkler company that has to meet certain requirements, NFPA 13, NFPA 13R. We've had to, in only one instance, install not a large tank, but a small tank for one building. We have had to use fire pumps on a couple of occasions to increase the fire flows. What I would respectfully request, is that there be a condition of the site plan approval whereby the building inspector has to sign off or agree with the analysis or the calculations that the fire suppression company, in our case it's Sullivan Fire. I've built 1,500 units with these guys, and they're pros. So they'll take the flow tests and do the analysis, and I'm not going to build a project that has inadequate sprinkler flow. It's just not going to happen. I believe that would be a prudent approach. In regards to the traffic, Mr. Cote, I hear you. I don't know how to say this. There's been movement the last couple of years in Putnam Hospital. Somers Orthopedic, for example, a very large orthopedic provider that took a tremendous amount of space in the hospital, has moved to Danbury. There's been other movement. with the former, what was it? It was Caremount, it was something before, and now I think it's Caremount. So there's been a shifting of office space, not only in the hospital, but if you look at some of the office buildings in that neighborhood, you have a couple office buildings as you come up on Drewville that are vacant. You have a tremendous amount of office space across the street in the office buildings that were previously auxiliary office space for the hospital. And a lot of that has occurred in the last few years. We all hope that that trend reverses, but as the Putnam Hospital was formerly in a health system called HealthQuest that has now turned into Nuvance, which is really based in Connecticut. And there's been a lot of resources and facilities that have kind of moved there. So I understand the concern, but I do think that in the last couple of years, if you looked at it, I think it's going the other way. I do agree with Mr. Cleary that the traffic counts are down by 10%. I think the fellows who did this traffic study for us have done numerous traffic studies for us, and it's always been accepted. My goal, all right, because it's the holiday season, is we are waiting to see if we secured the funding on the affordable side. We should hear before the end of the month. And normally these funding rounds come out once a year, but because of COVID, the state is backed up 1 year. So fortunately, if we don't get funded in this round, they're coming right back out with another round, where applications would be due probably in late February. And so if I was not funded, I would think the reason I wasn't was because everything wasn't wrapped up in a bow, right? Approvals and so forth. So I was looking at this to see if there's a way that we can satisfy any questions, set a public hearing, and then hopefully be back here in February for, a resolution. So that's my goal. If I don't get funded, that would be very important, to me and my chances of getting funded in the next time. In regards to the, the staggering or the timing of the COs, we'll work with Mike on that. I think I've mentioned to you in the past, Somers did something similar. I was standing there getting my resolution. They made a motion, and somebody seconded the motion, and somebody raised their hand and said, wait a minute, how do we know this guy's going to build that commercial building he says on Crossroads? And they redid the whole motion, and they put language in there that said that before I got a CO on the last residential building at Crossroads, I had to meet a certain threshold for the commercial building. And it was fair. It held our feet to the fire, and we were able to meet that. So I welcome working that out with the building department. But that's our goal, and hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Other questions from the board before we move on to some architectural discussions? So I believe everyone knows that we're very concerned and interested in the architectural appearance of the buildings. I've asked our architectural firm, Washour Maluso, and John, the representatives here tonight. We also had a meeting a month or so ago that John and Ken and Jeff and his architectural firm and Kim did preliminary, I'll call it early engagement. And our view, this board's view of that is let's try to engage early, save everyone some time and some money. So I'd like to open up the discussion a little bit to architectural now because it's 120 unit and it's very important to us. So is your architect here tonight?
I normally bring them for the public hearing.
Okay. So can you tell us, you or Jeff, tell us more about the units, and I'd like to engage John and Kim and the rest of the board as we go on. Or John, maybe you can summarize your meeting that you had. Maybe we'll start there.
Sure.
All right, John, maybe summarize the meeting you had.
We had our,
And this is also to bring this board, other than Kim and myself, up to speed, so then I want to engage everyone here.
we held our Architectural Review Board pre-submission
Can you
meeting.
pull the microphone a little closer? Thank you.
We held our pre-submission meeting on November the 10th. And the applicant at that time had 8 drawings, A1 through A8. Each sheet had the first floor plan and the front elevation of each building. Overall, it was well received. They showed a nice palette of material choices. The applicant gave a brief description of the layout, and based on that submission, I prepared a memo that was issued dated November 15th. The purpose of the memo was to give guidance to the applicant to complete their Architectural Review Board package and to also help them in attaining the town's desire to implement a New England aesthetic into the architectural features of the buildings. So I'm not going to repeat the memo here. They're listed. But at that time, the application that we received was incomplete. So a bulk of the comments were just advising the applicant what needed to be further submitted to complete their application in terms of drawings and other details and material and color choices. I think a couple of days ago, we received another set of drawings, so I'll be reviewing that and setting up another meeting with the applicant to review that package. But based on what we have seen, the initial aesthetic was well received. We had some comments about delineating the roof line, making it more scalable rather than having a continuous ridge. We advised that perhaps the ridge line needs to be broken down a little bit or create segments within the overall length of the building to make it more scalable and more, not make it more monolithic, to break it down into scale so it's a little bit more pedestrian friendly, looking at the length of the building. In addition to that, we suggested that perhaps a couple of different color palettes were prepared. Since this is a development that has multiple buildings, it can get a little monotonous if all the buildings have the same color palette. I believe in the subsequent package that was submitted, there are like 2 schemes that are presented where they're going to alternate the colors. So that's welcome. So still need to take a look at that. And there are nice selections of materials, the siding. Some of the buildings, the ones that are 3-story, I think have a stone base that also will help. Pretty much the direction is there. We're just looking for more refinement of detail and articulation of the building geometry to make it more scalable.
You mentioned siding a couple of times. What is the material?
The material that the applicant has proposed is a fiber cement siding. So it's going to be in different colors. It looks like traditional wood siding, but it's a fiber cement material, and it comes pre-painted from the factory.
Kim, you have any comments from the Microsoft?
Sorry. So to add on to like what John was saying, overall, the applicant's been very supportive. The ideas are great. We had talked a little bit about adding more of a New England style approach to the buildings, adding some lights to the windows or grids, adding shutters, and they have shown those on the new drawings that we have in front of us. So we're headed in the right direction. The roof line, like John mentioned, they've changed that up. The cupolas have been moved over. So I'm liking so far what we're seeing. I think seeing samples later on, I know there was some colored samples sent in in some of the paperwork that we received. I think seeing some of those color samples and seeing how everything ties together as we get further down the road.
Ken, when would we get to see a rendering or, you know, and maybe even samples of materials?
We'll have that for the, normally, I bring that for the public hearing. I can,
Yes.
so,
Comments from the board on any of the architectural? Bob?
One question, what discussions have been had on the subject of landscaping, particularly landscaping within the project as opposed to on the periphery?
I think it's more with Jeff probably, right?
The original, I'm sorry, the original submission didn't include any of that, so one of my comments was to provide that on a site plan that shows landscaping opportunities, signage, lighting, you know, all the types of things that would help develop the site plan.
Yeah, we have that shown actually on this drawing here. We call it our layout and landscape plan. We show schematically in this particular case, you know, where we would have evergreen trees, large deciduous trees. We have foundation planting, shrubs, special seed mixes in and around the landscape areas, and then, of course, the lighting is laid out as well. So I thought, John, that we had submitted site plans to you. If they hadn't gotten to you, we'll certainly do that. But I thought as part of the first review, we did forward those to you.
So one of the concerns I had is landscaping within the housing. And it comes from, I did take a trip over to the development you had directed us to in Summers, on the Summers-Yorktown border. And the one thing that struck me was that it was fairly naked inside, meaning I didn't see any trees in front of the houses. There was a big
is that
field.
the one under construction?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not finished.
Yeah, okay, well, but
I
that's
get
why.
better with age.
That's why I'm asking.
No, I'm not finished.
But I'm still asking, what I note there are going to be trees on the outside, but I don't see trees on the inside on those drawings, unless I missed something.
Yeah, so we have, as I said, we have some evergreen trees in key areas for screening purposes, but then we have a rhythm of larger deciduous trees that line the roadways in certain areas and around the parking lots.
So take one of the buildings, the two at the lower portion. As a resident, when I come into the building, where would I enter the building?
Well, these buildings actually have multiple entries. So along the front of here, there's 9 entry points. Okay, because there's not a central corridor in these buildings.
And what's the intention on the other side of the building?
You mean the back side of the building?
That's the back side. That's what I guess I.
Yeah, that's the back side of the building. So
Okay.
There's kind of a green that gets established through here that we've shown on a grading plan. But again, it's hard to see from where you are, but there is foundation planting along the base of the building itself.
Are there shade trees that?
And then there's shade trees, and the rhythm of that goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
6,
Okay.
and then continues up the road. This area right here is a little sparse. As I'm looking at it, we should probably add a couple shade trees coming up there just to finish that rhythm.
And in the cluster on the right, where would the trees be?
So again, we have some flowering trees and deciduous trees sprinkled throughout.
And the same shade trees?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay.
John,
Any comments on the
the architect did respond to the comments a few days ago?
Yes.
Okay.
We did get an updated package a couple of days ago that was more substantive than the first package that we received. The first package, all we had was
Right.
the first floor plan of the building and the front elevation of the building. This subsequent package, and again, I didn't fully review it, but he had a cover letter that addressed the comments on my memo, and there were additional drawings. So I need to take a look at it, but yes, some
And I
additional.
was aware that John didn't get a chance to review all those.
Sure.
But I still want to have this early engagement, which is the key
Absolutely.
with trying to, get things moving.
Mr. Chairman, to your question about the rendering, once we get, and I think we're getting there,
Yeah,
we're pretty close. Once we're there, we'll send it to the rendering company, and we'll have renderings here, and if it's okay with the board, I'll have the architect here and the renderings and so forth, when and if the public hearing is set. And if we don't get there, then I won't have the renderings, right? If there's more comments back and forth, but I think we're getting
Well, and I
there.
think we could do some Zoom meetings. We don't need to meet formally like this. I think John and your firm and
Yeah.
Kim and I and anyone else that's interested can do some meetings next week, or,
Yeah.
whatever the case. John, I do like your idea about different palettes, or different color palettes, rather than just one color. Pat, Rich, Joe, any comments on anything you've heard architecturally, anything you want to add? I know I've been asking the board, but a lot of this is new to you, Pat. Anything you want to?
So we've been challenged to articulate what does a New England feel mean, right? So that's why we now have an expert to help translate that instinct into hardy plank or whatever it is tangible in with respect to the design. So that's the issue. I have nothing further to add with respect to that. I think that's the concept we want to try to achieve, as we've always tried to achieve.
I'd like some of the thoughts, shutters, colors, so on. Rich, any thoughts on this? Anyone else from the board?
I have nothing to offer with that.
Anybody,
Ken, I think what they're looking for is something before the public hearing, so they kind of see where this is headed. And I think that's why they're going back and forth. If you could probably provide something ahead of time with what you've
Yeah,
done
I
back
think
and
the
forth.
challenge candidly is, and I'm speaking for Ken, is it's expensive to render
Yeah, I
these.
understand.
So
But
if
the-
you can
I'm saying it's
narrow.
the color schemes of what you're gonna do, and even if you did one building with even if it's not a color rendering, but all the elevations, I would think you're pretty close to that, no?
Yeah, this is just part of our submission. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, the distinction I think I would make in my mind is we're not addressing a visual impact issue. So we don't need renderings as it evolves to determine if it's acceptable. What we're looking at is architecture.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean you needed this before the final. What I'm saying is like just the final elevations with color selections. I know renderings are expensive.
I mean, to Pat's point, we want to all agree on the physical structure, what the roof line's going to look like, what the elevation's going to look like. I don't want to step out of bounds, but we need to be in agreement with that. The colors can and will follow. So, we need to take it
I like
in small
blue.
segments.
anything else from anyone on the
And what
board?
I would like to do, if I could, Kim and John, we've had a very robust, I mentioned on the Zoom call, architectural subcommittee in another town. And it's a series of 5 buildings, and they chose different colors. They chose different color schemes. Some, yeah, and some towns don't prefer that, but they did. And there was a lot of back and forth on a lot of issues, cupolas not having lights in them, having lights in them, and so forth. But we'll share that with you for the next Zoom call. And I think it'd be good to compare where we are, and it's not apples to apples, but it's always good to compare.
So, my thought on this is, the next meeting, possibly, potentially, we may have a meeting December 22nd, depending on the agenda and people's availability. A tough week to have a meeting. I'm willing to keep working with Jeff and your team and our team to schedule for, which might be the next meeting, we don't know yet, the second week in January for a public hearing. Albeit during that time, I'd like to work with Rich also, and I just want to square away that traffic and that water. I want to feel, I'm sure we're fine, but I want the professional to be fine with us. So, if the board agrees, if everyone agrees, my opinion is we should make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the first meeting in January, which will be the second week in January. working in parallel with our team, Kim, myself, anyone else that's invited here, John, your firm, on the architectural, and working with Rich on the traffic and the water.
Okay.
And any other open issues that might.
Ken, you would know about your funding by then as well, right?
I will.
Right, so we'll have to consider that, otherwise
Yeah.
we'll be wasting everybody's time.
So you're not the only
So
one in a
tentative.
given mood tonight, Ken. Is this reasonable? Is this, all right, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second week in January.
How about, should we come December 22nd if we make headway on, or we're going to do that?
No, we don't know if we're gonna have a meeting. We probably don't. Let's plan on the second week in January.
All right, so Christian will get with Rose, who will arrange with John and Kim and set up another Zoom call.
I think by that second week in January, and I'll include myself, should have a couple of Zoom calls. Anyone else that wants to attend is fine, and we'll have architectural pretty well defined, and we'll have water, traffic, and anything else that may come up.
Great. Thank you for
Close.
your flexibility. Merry Christmas, Happy Healthy New Year to everybody and their family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Also.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to all, thank you.
Renderings, whatever drawings get sent around.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the public hearing we'll need you at. Yeah, and you have our emails, and I'll extend it to the rest of the board also. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Good, good, I like that. Good night. Next on the agenda is Western Bluffs subdivision, 360 West Shore Drive, 3-lot subdivision. Rich, would you read?
I've got Mike's, Craig. So Mike's comments are, the applicant's proposing a 3-lot subdivision, a wetland permit's required from the ECB, easements are required that have to go to Joe, and all zoning comments have been addressed, and Mike has no further comments on the preliminary approval. And here comes Rich. He's moving quick.
All right.
You're up.
Not really, because I can get my memo.
Here it is.
I got it. Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman and board members. The applicant has called for general comments. It's a 14.8 parcel developed into 3 lots. It's located on West Shore Drive. The Mayapack Fire Department has been referred to by the applicant. They have met with the ECB. The applicant has met and received comments from Putnam County DOH. Per the applicant, upon approval of the project, Carmel Planning Board, they will submit to Putnam County Department of Health for final signatures. They will need a curb cut from the Putnam County Department of Highway and Facilities. A stormwater pollution prevention ban has been provided. They will need to seek coverage under GP 20, the current state one. They've provided an approved SWIP from the New York City DEP. They will need to develop the stormwater performance bonds and associated engineering fees, and it's minimally required for stormwater management practice, erosion sediment control, and drainage features, landscaping, refer to section 156-61. And a stormwater bond and maintenance may be required. They've noted the need for it, but they need to provide a copy of it. Applicant has provided proposed easements. They should be reviewed by planning council. The amount of fill, if any, being brought to the site should be provided, and it should be certified. Approvals are needed. Graphic approvals from the Putnam County DOH should be provided, which they've already indicated. And graphic representation of vehicle movement should be provided throughout the site. The applicant graphically provided the information at the modified site entrances for a UPS truck. Turning radii should be provided for vehicles at proposed residences. In addition, it should include turning radii for fire trucks or any other kind of delivery trucks that are going to go up that road. So when you look at those driveways, it's kind of, they're there. I don't know if a truck can turn around. Fire trucks need to get up there. So, that's just a consideration for safety with fire trucks. For deliveries, obviously, the truck has to be able to make a U-turn. A lot of guys come in vans now, but oil trucks will be going up there and whatnot, so.
So, Rich, that's a fair point. Oh, go ahead, Pat. I want to hear your comments.
So we're at the preliminary review stage on this application. If you remember, you adopted the neg deck on this in 2018, allowing John to go to DEP. To Rich's point, there are a couple of details that need to be submitted, the amount of cut and fill. I don't know if you talked to the fire department, but if you remember, this is the 3-lot subdivision that shares common driveways throughout. So Rich's point about circulation is a relevant comment because it's not a town standard road. We're talking about shared driveways. So access from the fire department, access for delivery vehicles, relevant concern. We should know a little bit more about that. Wasn't clear if there's lighting proposed. It's a driveway, not a town standard street, so you just got a shake from that, so no lighting's proposed. We missed a minor point in the neg deck, which was the identification of potential endangered species on the site. So we just need closure about the large trail blade, which was identified as potentially existing in the area of the site. So we just need to confirm that it's actually not on the site. I don't know what it is.
Sounds dangerous. What is it?
Laparis laliflorula. Sounds like a plant to me.
Would you like our office to do the inspection?
So, yeah, so again, it's identified as in the area by DE. They don't tell you exactly where it is, so it may not be anywhere near your site. You just need to close that loop.
I had thought we addressed that issue. I'll look into the file.
If you did, John,
You need
it's,
to speak into him. I'm sorry, John.
maybe you addressed it, John, but it's,
Is this one working?
I believe so.
just for the record, if you did address it, readdress it,
Yeah, I will.
okay?
Absolutely.
And again, the plan has been improved since you last saw it. They have made some of the, for example, there were retaining walls that were previously required. They've been eliminated. It's now graded, which is an improvement to the plan. There was question about driveway grades, so John's worked on that. They're now all compliant grades on the site. There were site distance improvements at the driveway intersections that were done, all improvements from the last time we saw the application or the plan. They are not providing open space on the plan. They'd pay a fee in lieu in this particular instance. And I think that's all the issues we had. So a couple of cleanup items to move him along.
I agree with that whole flow of traffic, because I visited the site. It's all wooded. I don't really, there's a house at the end of it, I believe, right? A driveway at the end of it?
At two ends.
All right. So
there's two separate-
can you explain the whole, what you're doing here? Now you got 14 acres, you just divided it evenly into 3 different lots. Where will the flow of traffic be, like Rich mentioned and Pat mentioned?
It's
I'm sorry, you have to use a microphone because, yeah, that might be better. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
If you put up the map, it might help as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't bring a map tonight.
Okay.
At the last meeting, I thought the board was pretty much in line with moving to a public hearing once the engineering comments were
Yeah, and
satisfied.
Rich still has some engineering comments, right? Traffic flow being one, which is what I'm asking.
Well, I think it's just a turnaround at each house, and we'll definitely provide it. I'm thinking what we'll do, Rich, is put a grasscrete pad at each house to accommodate a UPS truck or a fuel truck.
Yeah,
It's
just show that
easiest-
on the drawing, right? So
Yeah,
somebody-
we'll put it on the drawing at the 2 homes at the extreme ends of the driveway. The first lot, I think the driveway is short enough that it could back right out of the driveway into the common driveway.
Again,
as a turnaround.
that has to be just shown graphically, as long as it's feasible, it's not a problem.
We will do that.
Remember, this is an oversized parcel. There's plenty of room to do these things on the site. You just got to show it.
It's a 15-acre parcel. We're requesting a subdivision for 3 lots. They average about 5 acres in size.
No, plenty of, like
Yeah.
Rich just says, plenty of room for this.
Yes. And we're servicing the lots with a common driveway. It's an initial common driveway at the main road to minimize the curb cuts on the road. So we have one curb cut on the county road. We have a short stretch of driveway, which will be accessed by the three homes. That one house branches off at a point probably about 75 feet into the site. The other two homes continue up on a common driveway. Once it passes the first lot, the remaining portion of the driveway is private.
And just so the board knows, and John, just so you know, that this is the preliminary, the next step is final. There are still section 131.14 of the code identifies the missing pieces that would need to be there. So there's a little bit of cleanup work, as Pat said, that needs to be there. Some of these more detailed comments need to be looked at, as what they're discussing right now. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that. There is another section of code that needs to be just looked at and addressed.
Questions from the board?
Has this property already been subdivided into 3 lots? No. No, okay. So we're doing both the site plan and the subdivision simultaneously?
It's the subdivision with specific improvement plans that are proposed on each of the lots.
Okay.
We designate the house sites and the driveway locations. We have an agreement with the health department on the location of wells and septics. We have the septics laid out. We did all our testing for stormwater. We received New York City DEP approval of our SWIP. So most of the details are there. I guess there's a couple of minor issues remaining.
It looks to be a nice project.
Yeah, it should be
Drawings
nice.
that I've seen in the layout, it looks like it's going to be a very nice project.
Well, just to be clear, it's a challenging site.
It is.
So it's hard
Yeah.
to find a solution for a challenging site.
And you've done a good job, I think, doing that.
Thank you.
We can't ignore, though, the species that Pat mentioned.
I will ask Dave to do an inspection on the site next week.
Yeah, it's like finding an
Give you a
architectural,
report
right?
before it snows, yes.
We don't really know.
We have to figure that out.
Is it a plant or an animal?
Blade.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a plan.
It's probably a wetland-related
I
plant.
think it is.
So
Because
we'll
that
walk the
could
wetlands.
slow down or stop the project.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, the way this works is endangered species, the DEC categorizes them, but they don't tell anyone where they are because they're protecting them.
Yeah.
So what they say is within a mile of the site, this plant or whatever it is may be there. So that's how this is identified. They will go out and sort of evaluate that and then talk to DEC, and DEC will say, yeah, you're right, it's not there, it's down the block, you're good. So it's,
When you
it's
find
a-
it, when they find it, they should let us know.
Or, that's right, or bring a shovel with them when they go out there. I don't want out there.
So there's still a couple of things like that that you need to resolve.
Well, I think it's the one plant, I believe it's the turnaround at the two driveways,
Yep, cut and fill.
and we'll give you the cut and fill. The grading has all been
John, we'll give you the
completed.
memos, so you know exactly, we'll give you the memos tomorrow so you can see exactly what's.
And there are a couple pages of comments here, 2 pages of comments. So I think this also falls into possibly a second week in January meeting, because we need to close on a couple of things here. And we can schedule a public hearing for the second week in January, if we have a motion.
Subject to.
Yes, subject to clarifying, you're gonna need some time to clarify this. And the
Oh,
comments to Rich,
absolutely.
the
We'll
whole
take care
flow
of
of traffic. And although you know it, we need it documented. We need a memo to Rich checking off all these
Absolutely.
boxes. Yeah, and to Mike. Mike had quite a few comments too. Yeah.
Well, we have a few easements on the property. We haven't drafted the easement documents yet, but we have the easements shown on the plat. I provided
one of Mike's actually,
I
yeah.
provided the surveyor's plat that has meets and bounds for each of those easements.
Yeah, we typically wouldn't require you to give those to Joe until you get to the final approval stage.
Okay, great.
But we need to know where they are on the site, as you've indicated.
Now, last time we discussed a combined hearing, preliminary and final.
Okay. Make a motion for a public hearing second week.
All right, so I'll make a motion, subject to addressing the issues that were outlined by our consultants. I'll make a motion to schedule this for a public hearing for the first meeting in January of 2022.
All in favor? Rose also distributed minutes of October 27th and November 18th. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as distributed by Rose?
Mr. Chairman, I made some minor corrections on the minutes. I sent them to Rose, so subject to those corrections, I make a motion that they be approved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Look what Rich found.
Can you smoke it?
Tweety Bird?
Joe, can you smoke?
I don't know, it doesn't look rollable.
Did we opt